Are you living, or just preparing to live? Think about it for a moment. Take a deep breath. Forget for a few seconds about your to-do list, your unanswered emails, your weekend plans, and now, answer me honestly. Do you feel like you're truly living your life, or just fulfilling an endless schedule that promises you peace later on, when everything is resolved? How many times have you thought something like, when I finish this course, then I'll be ready? Or, when I save enough money, then things will start to work out. Or even, when I find someone who understands me, then I'll feel complete. We do this all the time. And the scariest thing is that often, we don't even realize it. We live within a pattern that seems normal, even necessary. A kind of invisible script that pushes us forward, as if the present were just a waiting room for some future, idealized version of ourselves. But what if I told you this script is a trap? That this lifestyle, rushed, anxious, always focused on the next step, is actually taking us away from the only thing that truly exists, the now. Have you ever experienced this? That feeling that life is slipping through your fingers even when you're doing everything right? That restlessness that arises even after achieving an important goal? It's as if something is always missing, as if we're eternally indebted to a life that hasn't yet begun. This is one of the great illusions that philosopher Alan Watts spent his life trying to debunk. Alan Watts was one of the first Western thinkers to translate Eastern teachings, especially Zen and Taoism, into an accessible form for those immersed in the fast-paced logic of the West. He spoke about time, purpose, existence, but not from a theoretical, distant place. His ideas were born from everyday life, from close observation of modern human beings, and the way we choose to live or postpone life. And one of the most profound things he said was precisely this, that life is not a staircase, nor a straight line with a beginning, middle, and end. Life is not a destination, it is a dance. And the purpose of dance is not to get somewhere, but to dance. Which means that if you're living only for the future, waiting for the right moment to breathe a sigh of relief, waiting for success, waiting for peace of mind, you may be missing out on what's right in front of your eyes. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover may surprise you. You might realize you're stuck in an endless search, driven by an idea of motivation that, in practice, only fuels anxiety and frustration. Watts invites us to look at this automatic way of living and ask, is what motivates me real, or just a projection of a self that never arrives? Obsession with the future, with being better, more productive, richer, more recognized, may seem inspiring at first, but over time it becomes suffocating, because the more you chase tomorrow, the more distant it seems. The promise that up ahead everything will fall into place becomes a maze with no exit, and it's at this point that many people reach exhaustion, existential emptiness, and the question, but I did everything they told me to, why do I still feel lost? And here, perhaps, lies the key Alan Watts wanted us to find. Life isn't something that will happen when everything is ready. It's already happening, right now, as you listen to me, as you breathe. And the question that naturally arises is, are you present? Or has your mind already raced to what comes next? This restlessness is more common than it seems. Excessive goals, pressure for results, the cult of performance. All of this shapes how we view our value and our time. And little by little, we unlearn how to be, how to simply be. And the most tragic thing is that we often confuse this with ambition, discipline, and willpower. But what appears to be motivation is often just fear. Fear of quitting, of wasting time, of not being enough. And at this point, Alan Watts' reflection gains even more strength. Because it's not about abandoning your dreams nor about living irresponsibly. It's about waking up, realizing that by living only for tomorrow, we may be missing out on truly living. And maybe, just maybe, what you seek most isn't any future achievement but rather the simple act of being aware. Now, what happens when we stop rushing? When we trade expectation for experience? When we quiet the planning mind for a moment and listen to the pulse of life? Perhaps the answers will begin to emerge when we change the question. And that's exactly what we'll talk about next. Perhaps the answers will begin to emerge when we change the question. And that's exactly what we'll talk about next. Because, in the end, this video isn't just about Alan Watts, nor just about philosophy. It's about me, about you, about that inner turmoil we feel when we realize we've been living on autopilot, as if we're always chasing something we can never quite reach. It's about that quiet restlessness that arises in pauses, when the noise outside subsides and we hear, even if only for a moment, the question echoing within, what if I'm forgetting to live right now? If this conversation resonates with you, if this topic somehow stirred something inside you, whether it's a memory, a question, or even a relief, then take the opportunity to leave a comment below. Seriously, it can be simple. Share what made you reflect. Write about how you've been feeling. Or just say, I'm here. Because your comment isn't just an answer for me, it's an echo of awareness that inspires others who are experiencing the same questions, even if they've never said them out loud. And when you share something, no matter how small, you help this conversation continue to spread. And if this kind of content resonates with you, if you feel you need more moments like this, of pause, of reflection, of truth, then subscribe to the channel. This is much more than a click. It's a way of saying, I want to continue this journey. And each new subscription, each like, each person who interacts here, strengthens this space for reflection. In a world that's always rushing, it's a way to keep alive the possibility of stopping, feeling, and looking more closely within. Stay with me, because what comes next may deepen this vision even further. Perhaps you'll discover that you don't need to change your life. You just need to, little by little, change the way you look at it. Because if we look honestly, we live in a culture that has trained us from a very young age to believe that life only truly begins after we achieve something. After college, after the job, after the ideal relationship, after financial stability, after resolving everything that's pending. And the problem with this isn't wanting to grow or achieve. The problem is that after never ends. It transforms. It changes form. It becomes another goal, another step. And before we know it, we're living in an eternal pre-life. Always almost there, but never completely present. Have you ever noticed this? Have you ever felt so focused on accomplishing something that you didn't even notice the time passing? That you were surrounded by achievements, but still felt empty? The kind of emptiness that has no logical explanation, because on the surface, everything is fine. But deep down, it's not. This cycle of seeking, achieving, and feeling like something's still missing is more common than it seems. And it's not because you didn't know how to take advantage of it, nor because you lacked gratitude. It's because you were taught that the reward is at the end, not on the way. That the value is in the destination, not the journey. And then, even when you achieve a big dream, that silent question creeps in. Is this all there is? And you feel guilty for not being completely happy, because you should be, but you're not. And no one said this could happen. This is one of the great illusions that Alan Watts exposed with disconcerting clarity. The idea that happiness is always just around the corner, in some hypothetical place, when everything is just right. But the truth is that this just right doesn't exist, because life will never be organized like a finished project. It will continue to be unstable, unpredictable, impermanent, and that's precisely why it's real. Watts used simple metaphors, but they carry enormous weight. One of the ones that struck me most was when he compared life to a song. He said, "We don't listen to a song to get to the end. We listen because we want to feel every note, every rhythm, every pause. And yet, we live as if the music of our lives is only worthwhile if it's played fast, hurriedly, straight to the final chord. But life isn't background music. It's the melody, and it only happens in the now, the moment you breathe, observe, feel. And it's curious how something so simple, being present, has become almost an act of rebellion. Because everything around us says the opposite. It tells you to hurry, optimize, produce, improve, as if you were a machine. But you're not a goal-setting machine. You're a being who feels, who makes mistakes, who changes their mind, who sometimes doesn't know what to do. And all of this is part of the process of being alive. And here comes a point that, for me, changed everything. What if what motivates you is actually distancing you from yourself? What if this constant desire to get somewhere, to prove something, to achieve more, is just an elegant disguise for an insecurity you never took the time to listen to? It may seem harsh to think this way, but this is the root of much of the anguish we carry. Motivation that seems inspiring is often just a well-crafted fear. Fear of stopping, of not being enough, of not being accepted. And when this kind of fear controls our choices, we move, but don't find ourselves. So what would it be like to reverse this logic? What would it be like to return within, even with everything outside screaming hurry? It's not about dropping everything and running off into the woods, nor about living without purpose. It's the opposite. It's about giving purpose to the present moment. It's about realizing that pause is also movement, that being with yourself in silence can be more revolutionary than any achieved goal. And look, it doesn't have to be anything grand. Sometimes it all starts with a tiny gesture, stopping for a minute and feeling your breath come and go, walking without a destination just to observe your surroundings, eating slowly, listening to someone without thinking about how you'll respond, being grateful for something simple, like your breakfast, the sun through the window, the body that carries you. These small actions aren't a waste of time. They're ways to remember who you are, behind everything you do. It's not about stopping dreaming. It's about stopping getting lost in the dream. Because dreams are important, yes, but they're worthless if they disconnect you from who you are now. And when you allow yourself to live in the present moment, you begin to realize something else. Everything is impermanent. And this, instead of being frightening, can be liberating, because nothing is fixed. Not pain, not joy, not the problems that seem impossible today. Everything passes, everything flows, and this awareness brings lightness. Because if life is constantly changing, then you don't need to control everything. You just need to be aware, participate, feel, be. Impermanence teaches us that there is no perfect moment. There is the present moment, imperfect, chaotic, beautiful in its own way. And when you embrace this, you begin to dance with life, instead of constantly pushing it forward. As Watts said, life is a dance, and the purpose of dancing is to dance. It's not about getting to the end, it's about enjoying every step. And then perhaps you'll realize that the future you've been chasing is actually the present you've been ignoring. That the real motivation isn't in achieving something but in learning to be, in allowing yourself to be whole now, even if not everything is resolved, because it never will be, and yet, you can be at peace. And this difference isn't just symbolic, it's real, palpable, almost silent, yet profoundly transformative. When you write, when you share, even if it's just a single sentence, you create an invisible link with others who may be experiencing the same doubts, the yaopo, same internal conflicts, the same suffocating pressures. People who, like you, are trying to find meaning in a world that values speed over truth. This journey of returning to the present is not linear. Sometimes you'll feel present, aware, connected to each moment, and the next day you'll realize you're back to rushing, getting lost in your commitments, distracted by the expectations of what it should happen. And that's okay, because being aware isn't about being perfect. It's about being awake enough to realize when you're lost, and kind enough to get back. Life doesn't demand that you be at peace all the time. It only asks for your presence. It asks that you show up for it, even when you're tired, even when you're confused, even when you don't have answers. Because the now, however imperfect it may seem, always has something to offer you. And sometimes, all it takes to feel whole is to allow yourself to be exactly where you are, without running away, without waiting. Alan Watts said that we live as if life were a problem to be solved, but in reality it's an experience to be lived. This seems simple, but it's radical, because it completely changes the way you relate to time, to your goals, to yourself. It's not about giving up on your dreams nor about stopping planning for the future. It's about not sacrificing the present for a future that may not even unfold the way you imagine. Think about it. How many times have you stressed, lost sleep, or been anxious about something that didn't end up happening? Or something that did happen but wasn't that amazing? How many times have you missed out on a good moment because your mind was preoccupied with what was coming next? It's like being at your favorite band's concert, but recording everything with your phone instead of enjoying the music. Life is like that. You either live it or you document it, and most of what matters doesn't fit in stories. There's a hidden truth behind the modern rush. It gives us a false sense of control. When we're too busy, when we follow an endless to-do list, we feel like we're in control, that we're on track. But often, this incessant movement is just an escape, an elegant distraction to avoid an awkward silence, a pause that could show us we're going too fast, in the wrong direction. And that's where Watts's philosophy becomes a mirror, an almost disconcerting invitation to stop, breathe, and observe. Observe how you move, what you seek, what you feel when you're alone, doing nothing. It seems simple, but for many people this is the hardest part, because stopping requires courage. The courage to find yourself, to face yourself, to discover that perhaps you're tired not from doing too much, but from doing what makes no sense. And doing what makes sense starts with listening, truly listening to what's pulsing inside, what's been trying to call you for ages, but has been ignored in the name of productivity, status, routine. The outside world will keep telling you that you need more, that it's still not enough, that only after you achieve dice X, you'll be able to rest. But what if you don't have to wait until then? What if you can already feel peace right now, even if things are still messy? Because deep down, living with presence is an act of rebellion in a world that profits from your haste, a world that rewards you for running, but rarely teaches you to stop. And when you choose to stop, not from doing, but from chasing after what isn't yours, you make room for something new, a new mindset, a new way of seeing life, without rushing, without fear, with truth. Motivation, in this context, stops being a force that pushes you and becomes a flame that sustains you. It comes from within, not from without, and it's not based on proving anything to anyone. It comes from clarity about what matters, about what's valuable to you, about what touches your soul, not just your agenda. And at that point, everything starts to change. Your decisions change, your rhythm changes, the way you look at people changes, because you're no longer chasing life, you're in it, whole, alive, conscious. This is the true impact of stopping chasing the future. You finally find yourself in the present, and in this encounter you begin to see yourself with more compassion, more lightness, more truth. You begin to realize that the present is not an obstacle, it's the key. If you've made it this far, truly, it's great to have you with me in this conversation. Because not everyone is willing to dive this deep. This kind of reflection requires presence, listening, and courage. And if this content resonated with you on some level, if a phrase touched you, made you think differently, or simply made you pause for a moment, it was worth it. If this kind of exchange strengthens you, brings you clarity, or helps you look at life more calmly, subscribe to the channel. This is the space I want to continue building, a place for us to talk, deeply, unhurriedly, and truthfully. And if you made it to the end, leave a comment below. I'm with you until the end. It's a simple way to show that this message has reached people, and it can inspire others who are on this same silent journey of finding their way back to themselves. Oh, and if this video touched you in any way, please leave a like, not because of the number, but because it helps this content continue to reach those who need to hear it right now. There's a video right here that elaborates on this topic in a special way. Click and stay with me there. We still have a lot to talk about.